was saying to Baz yesterday, a big thing's trust as well. You know, if you've got trust with people, players will come and go within clubs, but if you've got contacts within clubs that are, you know, management or people who work behind the scenes, you know, they're always going to be there. That's their full-time job, and they're going to be there for a long
Is that
time.
right? You only played about 170 games. Is that about right?
Played how many?
170.
No, I played more than that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Played 150 odd for Cambridge, I think. Yeah, I think it was more about 500, maybe a bit more.
Yeah,
including non-league stuff as well.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go and grab my laptop charger. It won't be a sec.
Stop lying, MJ.
Here he is.
Come on, Ben.
Ah.
Hey.
Look at you holding me back. What's all that about?
We're having a proper conversation.
I was listening, mate. I was trying to get noticed. I'm pressing the raise the hand button. I'm doing all sorts.
That's my fault. Sorry, Ben. He was listening to your mate talk gibberish.
You'll have nothing else to talk about.
He's chatting. He's been chatting Chanel up all the time. Won't talk about
it. I wonder why.
Taking her to Antigua now.
Listening.
I've just come back in the room. Hi, Ben. Are you okay?
Yeah, good. Thanks, you.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks.
Sorry, just one second. Yeah. I'm doing you go, shut the door. It's my daughter telling me I'm too loud.
You are too loud.
Hey, that sounds like something in my family. That, yeah, exactly. That's hoping our friend Shane come in at some point.
He'll probably be on in a sec, won't he?
Yeah. He will.
I hope you can handle all these viewers you're going to have. I don't want it to crash or something.
If it crashes, Ben. Hey?
Hey, we're getting a bit better with all the technical issues now, aren't we, Baz?
I think so. I'm trying, Chanel. I'm trying. It's not easy. I'm going to leave me attendees on. So I'll probably go live in about 3 minutes. So, Chanel, I was chatting to these two. It's going to be pretty informal because the amount of banter that was going on yesterday was hilarious. So I think the first
I saw that video.
Honestly, the first part of
too much, Baz.
Brilliant. I know, Mark. You can just say what you want. Don't worry. There are a few kids watching, but no problem.
No one will be listening anyway.
No. Yeah, there will be. I'll send you recordings tomorrow when I'm down it onto YouTube. But the first part will be sort of about these two, and then I'm just going to get them to bounce off each other, and we'll throw a few questions in now and then.
Yeah.
A few good stories, and then the sort of probably second half will be more about life after football and the transitioning between Mark's now in the community trust, and obviously Ben's a primary school teacher. So we'll focus a little bit on that, but quite informal, a bit more jolly today because there's some cracking stuff. Especially when Mark, Mark scores a goal tonight. He's going to take his top off and show us his six pack. So
don't. Ben gets excited when I do that.
only if those glasses help you see into the past. That six pack was about 12 years ago.
You know what I mean, See what I mean?
Oh, no, it's pretty funny. It's funny for me to listen to anyway.
Now, this is the dressing room banter that would probably go on in the changing rooms of a normal, it doesn't matter what standard.
I'm not going to lie, Baz. I didn't speak to Ben.
How long did you two guys play together for?
Right, so just hang on 1 minute. I'll introduce.
Yeah.
We're going to go live in about 10 seconds. Well, I'll tell you when I'm going to go live. Just crack on.
No, it was longer than that. It was a year at Hull, and then how long at Blackpool, MJ?
About the same, was it not?
Yeah, possibly. I lived with him for a bit.
Yeah.
Did you?
The rent was too much, so I moved into a house with a swimming pool.
Oh yeah, I saw that you're a City fan.
I was a City fan through the dark Stuart Pearce days. Jeez.
Oh, I don't remember them. Sorry.
We scored 2 goals at home all season. Yeah.
At least there was 2. It's better than none at all.
Exactly.
He'll be telling you he's Irish in a minute.
Sort of.
Yeah. At your part, you played for him as well, didn't you?
I did, but so did Tony Cascarino. No,
Listen, don't.
My dad was adopted from birth, really, and he never managed to trace his real parents. And then Ireland wanted me to play at under 18s, and they did all the tracing, did all the family tree, got me an Irish passport.
Shut up a minute. I'm going to go live in 5 seconds, and then you can say what you want. Just let me introduce you all, and then we'll crack on. Good evening, everybody. How are you all? See, a little bit earlier, 10 minutes earlier today. We've not had the health clap, but I'm sure everybody's had a good run and enjoyed themselves, and I'm sure they've all had a fantastic month of adulation. It will continue, no doubt. Pleased to say that we've got two legends of the game here. Ben Burgess, how are you doing, Ben? Don't look behind Mark.
House, let alone legend of the game.
I thought two people had walked in.
And Marc Joesph, and obviously our gorgeous Chanel, who's joined us again, and then I'm hopefully Yatesy will be joining us shortly. So, touching on you two guys, because we had a chat yesterday, and I couldn't stop laughing. It was absolutely tremendous. So, the first part of today, we'll be talking to Mark and Ben about their careers. Start with you, Mark. Over 500 league appearances. We've got Altrincham, Rotherham, Blackpool, Hull, Bristol, Cambridge. Cambridge is where it all started?
Yeah. Started at Cambridge. As a schoolboy, I was at Derby County, and that's where I learnt my trade, really. My last game for Derby, I got told I wasn't getting taken on as a scholar. And my last game for Derby was against Cambridge United. Gary Johnson was manager of the youth team and asked if I wanted to go down and have a bit of a trial with them. So I agreed to that. Didn't know where Cambridge was at the time. I'm 16, hadn't really been too far around the country, and agreed to go down to Cambridge the following weekend. And it turned out it was an away fixture at Portsmouth. So I joined the youth team on the coach. We had I can't remember, about 4 or 5 hour trip down to Portsmouth and played a game down there and come back, and they asked me to extend the trial period, and then ended up signing as a youth player at Cambridge, and the rest is kind of history. Then I did 7 years total at Cambridge. Was he any good, Ben?
He was good. He had a great throw in. That was his main strength. He was a tough defender, but he could also pass it as well. He also had a bit on the ball. He's even got a few skills now that I see every now and then at the park.
I bet you thought he was signing for the university, didn't you, apparently? Rather than the football team.
Yeah, until we saw the entrance exam.
Brilliant.
Couldn't find the entrance.
Leicester lad though, Mark. So was it a big change for you when you sort of moved from Leicester to Cambridge? Was it?
Yeah, it was actually. Moving down there, I actually moved into digs down there at 16. Never been away from home really, and it turned out at 16 I walked out the door and I didn't come back for quite a while. So I got supportive parents that used to come down and watch me play. But I think being as far away as I was meant that staying down there kind of made me focus more on the football. You hear a lot of stories of people that get sucked into an environment that doesn't perhaps welcome football and makes people go off the rails a little bit. I felt that I was quite lucky that the fact that I managed to live down there and focus on my football and really enjoy it.
Who was your manager at the time at Cambridge?
Gary Johnson was. He moved from the youth team manager to first team, and Tommy Taylor, ex Leyton Orient and West Ham centre half, took over as youth team manager. Hard as nails, worked our socks off, made us really graft, and back then it was when you used to run till you were sick. That was what your pre-season was. Used to graft.
Right. Tommy Taylor was a real hard nut centre half. Was he like your sort of mentor, guiding light?
Yeah, definitely so. I think as a young 16-year-old, not really knowing, what it took to be a professional footballer, having him by your side and constantly on your case if you made a mistake in a good way, to improve you. It definitely brought the best out of me and best out of our youth team. Really, we had a youth team that played in the south east counties, I think it was, and there was Arsenal, Tottenham, Portsmouth, West Ham. We had some big teams down there, and our youth team did really, really well up against them. We finished top half, top 5, 6, and 7 or 8 of my youth team went on and made it as a professional as well. So, yeah, we got quite lucky with our team.
He didn't make many mistakes, though, did he, Ben? Sounds like he was.
Yeah.
Hey?
No,
Can I go now?
It was a solid.
That's the first 5 seasons of your career. We've got another 20 to go yet, Sir Mark. Hey?
Ben's got some injuries to talk about. Hang on.
Yeah, exactly. The Birdman, love it. Hey, the Birdman, all that celebration, that overhead kick at Hull City, I love it. So, Ben, you've been, Blackburn, Brentford, Stockport, Oldham, Hull, Blackpool, Notts County, Cheltenham and
Northwest.
Northwest, yeah. You stayed close to home because you were a Buxton lad, weren't you? A Blue when you were born and played for Ireland as well. But tell us about, the different leagues that you've played in. You started off obviously lower down and then you sort of moved up. Go on, give us a little bit of insight.
Well, I started at Blackburn doing my apprenticeship, which was really good. That's the reason I chose Blackburn, because the facilities there are amazing. The training ground was good anyway, but they were building the new academy, which is now the first team's training ground.
Brockhurst.
Yeah, Brockhall.
Brockhall.
That's they were spending £5 million on that. The facilities are amazing. What I also liked, and my parents liked, was that we all stayed on the training ground, and there were 2 houses, which sounds chaos. I think there was our team and a few of the year above. So there was something like 22 of us, 16, 17-year-old lads living in 2 houses with this old couple next door to us. Oh, it was carnage. My mum still says, you used to be really tidy until you moved out there. So, yeah, and it was, you couldn't have anything because you couldn't have any privacy or anything, but it was good because we were all together. We still
16?
Yeah, that was at 16. So as soon as you leave school, went there, and it was just brilliant because it was just, we could walk to the training ground, go in there, play head tennis whenever we sort of wanted. It was just brilliant. I still speak to those boys, and we, again, like MJ, we had a good team, and our under-17s won the Youth Premier League then. Again, I think we beat City in the final. They had Sean Wright-Phillips. So yeah, there was some good teams, good players then. But yeah, it was great. It was great as a young kid.
Who was your manager? Obviously, you were a 16-year-old coming in, but who was the manager at Blackburn at the time?
I think it was Roy Hodgson at the time.
Wow.
So there was Roy Hodgson, and then it started changing all the time. And what wasn't great was that they'd signed so many players. So they were in the Premier League when I started, and then they got relegated. So they had Roy Hodgson, they had Brian Kidd. As I mentioned to you yesterday, Brian Kidd, he was brilliant. When I was like 10, 11, he used to ring my dad every Sunday trying to get me to sign for United, which it must have been weird for my dad. I speak to him now about it because my dad used to watch City all the time and stuff, so he knew who Brian Kidd was, and he was having to tell Brian Kidd no on a Sunday. So, and then he became Blackburn manager when I was about 17, so that was good. And then there was Graham Souness. Graham Souness came in. He was brilliant, but it just an aura around him. You certainly wouldn't mess with him. But he gave me a chance when I was 18 in the first team, so I played a couple of times then under him, and he was always good. I remember I was quite nervous, probably never handled those occasions that well, but he'd say to you in the changing rooms before the game's about to start, just like, look, I picked you because of what I've seen you do. Just carry on doing what you normally do. Don't change it because you're in the first team. And he'd always try and protect you, and it was it was good. It was interesting to see.
You've mentioned 3 legends, really. Not Kiddo so much on the management, but Kiddo from one of the youngest European Cup winners, legend at United. Obviously one of the main men behind at City now as well. So I think he played for both teams as well, actually.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he did. So you've got Graham Souness, Roy Hodgson, Kiddo. Obviously, you've got a couple of others. Anything in common between as coaches or as managers?
Well, they were all between me, the age of me being 16 to 18. So apart from Graham Souness, I wasn't working with them every day. I saw more of Graham Souness. It's that aura, and we've talked about this, and it's getting players to believe in what you want to do. You've got to have an idea. You've got to have a focus. You've got to stick with it. You can't keep chopping and changing. He's got to have a clear focus, but the players have to buy in. It's like when Ian Holloway first came to Blackpool, we stayed up the season before by about 2 points. And then Ian Holloway came in pre-season. We're all thinking, who's this guy? He'd not been in football for 2 years or whatever. And he says, right, boys, I've been out of football and I've been watching Barcelona. And we're all thinking, bet you have. And he went, we're going to get in the playoffs. And we're all saying, have you seen what we were like last season? Like we just launch it. And he had this philosophy, he had this idea. And instead of running on the first day of pre-season, he talked for 2.5 hours. And he said, this is how we're going to play, boys. And we're like, no chance. He's saying the fullbacks push up to the halfway line. Centre halves completely split either side of the box. Get it from your goalkeeper. So there's a massive hole in the middle of the pitch straight away. But that's where he wanted our defensive midfielders to get the ball from the keeper. And we're thinking, our defenders don't pass it out. And I remember the first few training sessions as a striker, it was brilliant because I looked amazing because they kept trying to pass it out the defence and I just kept running in and tackling them and scoring. But he stuck to it. And the amazing thing is, he tweaked little things along the way. One of them was that we'd keep 3 people up at all time. No, 4 people up when we were defending corners.
Wow.
But he tweaked little things like that. But we didn't lose a game all pre-season against lower league teams, championship teams, Premier League teams. And it's because of that. It doesn't seem a lot because it's pre-season, but people, we as players, we started turning around thinking, this could actually work. And as soon as you see the results, players have to buy into it, but they have to see the results on the pitch. If it's making you look stupid on the pitch, players will switch off and they're interested. But as a manager, I think you've got to have your philosophy, have your idea, and you've got to stick with it. And when people buy into that, it's just massive.
Mark, how do you think? I mean, Ben's just talked about the first speech when a new manager comes in, or the first session. That's probably the most important message, that he's going to get a chance. And I think a lot of senior players in the changing room are going to make a judgment on that manager, aren't they? You know, have you had it when a manager's come in and made a bit of a mess of it and everyone's gone, oh God, this is going to
be... Yes and no, really. I think that when the manager comes in, he needs the players on his side straight away. And it's how you can build those relationships up between the manager and the players. Some managers have really good number 2s, and their number 2 do all the work for them. I know when I was at Blackpool, obviously Larry was there, Simon Grayson was there, but yeah, Tomo was a really good number 2, and he linked everything that was happening in the changing room for the players back to the staff and vice versa. And it was a very good way of communicating any issues you had with the management. I've also had managers that have come in, John Beck with his own kind of style when I was at Cambridge. And
he's got a reputation for being a bit ruthless and
not many people
upsetting a lot of people. I think John Beck.
Yeah, not many people took to him, and he wasn't for changing. He wasn't really concerned about the players that we had in at the time. He was going to bring his own players in, no matter what. You know, you could perform really well, but he could still, you know, in the back of his mind, he still knew that he was gunning for you, and he was going to take someone else was going to take your position.
Well, that was at your Cambridge. I think when he came in, it was probably you're thinking, well, I need to find somewhere else, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that was back into my career. So I was, like saying the other day, I was just turned 24. Bosman rule had just come in, so I knew I could leave. And at the time, at 24, I'd just come to the end of a 3-year deal, which was at the time for what other players were on that were playing the first team was minimal really. And I remember walking into the office, and he said, "Right, I've got a deal for you, a 3-year deal." I looked at the sheet of paper and it went up 50 quid each year, and I just said, "I'm not signing that." And he said, "Right, I'll have another. I'll come back to you." And he came back to me and he said, "Right, I've got another offer for you. Again, turned it down. By then, I'd already made my mind up. I didn't want to play for him. Third time he came back and he offered me a testimonial because it had been my 10th year. If I'd played 3 years, my third year would have been a testimonial. And I said to him, I'm not comfortable playing for you. I don't like the way that you treat some of my mates and the way that you're playing. And he then said, well, is it because is it because Peterborough are interested? And at the time, I didn't know Peterborough were interested. So I said no. But then as soon as I got in the car, I rang the agent and he rang Barry Fry. And so I moved out to Peterborough. So I've got John Beck to thank for that. But he didn't leave a good impression on me and some of my other teammates at Cambridge, definitely.
Chanel, can you imagine, you've been at a club nearly 10 years and he's literally not showing a lot of respect to a player that's been there such a long time and he's already sort of decided that you're out. So funny how football in, 1 week, 2 weeks can change like that, can't it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I guess when you've been there for X amount of time and you're committed to that club and you've shown loyalty, when someone new comes in and they're going on like that, it probably is quite difficult to take, I can imagine.
So
yeah, I would have left too, if it was my choice.
A couple of those, I'm getting a few questions coming in, but hi Punk, hi Artie, hi Wissam, and hi AD Kundal, Matthew, a couple of people in Australia, Horrocksy, Godfather, how are you Horrocksy, good to see you again. And quick question for you, Ben, what was the worst introduction that you had from a manager?
I've had...
Go on, give us a couple of stories.
Well,
beans.
I think the ones straight away, it's the ones that are mumbling, they won't make eye contact, they're looking down, you just don't trust them, I think. And I think you can tell within the first 10 minutes. We had one manager, I won't say who it was, but...
You can.
Go on.
Every team talk...
I would guess.
The lads used to have a laugh because he'd pick anything up off the floor or anything around while he was talking to you. So the lads used to put like dirty undies on the floor right near him, like nuts on the floor, nuts on the table, and he'd just be picking them up, and everyone would be nudging each other while he's. It's just silly things like that. But they just, I think the managers that come in, they need. I think I've seen too many trying to be people they're not and picking fights. At Notts County, we had a manager who picked a fight with Lee Hughes, and if you ever met Lee Hughes, you know Lee Hughes, great player, but he's never going to back down from anything. And this manager was relatively new, and he fined Hughesy for something. In those days, the fine was he had to complete 2,000 meters on the rower or something like that. So he wheeled the rower into the changing rooms and said, "Hughesy, there's your fine. Do your 2,000 meters." And Hughesy's just looked at him like it's absolute dirt.
It's a bit belittling that, isn't it? Yeah. Really, I mean, that's a bit.
But just like it was just backed into a corner, and then from there it was sort of like, if you can't follow something through, don't do it. Don't pick fights with people. Yeah. You can't win.
Tell us quickly before, because hi Carl Romali wants you to talk about Barry Fry, but just tell us quickly about Ince, the governor, coming in and what was he like?
Yeah, well, Paul Ince came in. I think he was about my third manager at Notts County. So yeah, I was injured at the time, so I was injured most of my career. Yeah, it didn't work out for him at Notts County. I think I think with players like that were such good players, I think they tend to get frustrated when they manage lower down and they sort of see the players, and didn't quite work out. I didn't really get on with him. I'm sure he didn't like me. It's just one of those things. But as a footballer, I don't think you can take as much as you can take these things personally. There's no point sulking about it. You just know when. So if someone doesn't like you, you got to get out. And I think football. I've always been of the opinion to get out. I don't like to stay places because I've seen when managers pick fights with people, or when managers sort of marginalise players, they just sort of say you're not going to play.
No, Ince was a great. What you're saying is Ince was a great player, but you want a great manager. Fair enough.
Not for me. He wasn't a great manager for me, but I'm sure other people liked him. But yeah, it didn't work out for me. But once he left, we had Martin Allen come in, and Martin Allen is just mad. he's probably one of the only managers I still speak to, and he's the only one to put me on the transfer list. But he was like that. One day he'd just put me on the transfer list. Next day we'd be best friends. He's just there's some of the
story about him doing team tactics in a bus car park. Just tell us that.
Yeah, he'd do it anywhere. We'd stop the bus on the way to an away game in a service station, park the bus up, we'd all get out and we'd be stood in our team shape. Some old lady had walked by to get into the services and he'd shout, "Get out, that's our goal mouth." And she's looking around, like, where's the goal mouth? All she's done is walk past the coach. He just had mad things like that. And I said to you yesterday, he loved the FA Cup. The FA Cup was Martin Allen's thing, Mad Dog's thing. And we played Sunderland away. I think it was Sunderland. And we're in the hotel and he's called a meeting, 1 o'clock. We just got the message, be in the meeting room, 1 o'clock in the hotel. So we're all in there, 1 o'clock, everyone there, all the staff, all chairs set out, no gaffer. Where is he? Like, everyone's going, "Oh my, he's such a weirdo. Why is he not here? What is wrong with him? This is a massive game. Why is he not here?" 1:10, just pops out from behind a curtain, been listening to us the whole time. "Right, boys!" And everyone's, "What the?" It's just those sort of shock tactics, mad. But that's not even the craziest one. When we had Holloway at Blackpool, you ask any of the Blackpool players at the time, we played Derby County on Boxing Day away, and we got to the hotel, meeting him before the game, and he bought 11 teddies and put them out on this table and set them up as their players. And he's got this Robbie Savage teddy, and he's going, Robbie Savage was at Derby County at the time, he's going, "And this one, he'll be like this." And he's just moving Robbie Savage teddy all over, and then throwing him around the room going, "He'll be doing this, he'll be doing that." It's just one of those things, though. We're on a good run, and it just takes away the tension altogether.
Yeah, clever. Very clever. Psychology. Holloway, Martin Allen. Did you play under Carlton Palmer?
Yes, I had Carlton Palmer at Stockport.
Yeah.
Did you, Mark?
No, unfortunately.
All right, so Ben, I mean, firstly, obviously, talk about Barry, or you could talk about Barry Fry in a minute, Mark, but just tell me about Carlton Palmer, because Chris Scholes has given me one of these head in the hand icons on emojis with Carlton Palmer. So go on, what was he like? Was he any good?
Not particularly.
How long we got?
He'll say that about me, but
is there anyone you do like?
Sad thing was, I signed for Stockport County, and I used to go and watch Stockport County when I was younger. When City were away, I'd go with my mates, and I really liked Stockport County. I really liked the club, and he bought me for 450,000 from Blackburn, and I was some players were saying, "Don't go and sign for him." People were telling me, "Don't go." But I went, and I believed in what he was saying, and it just didn't work out. We just personalities we just clashed. So he went from like £450,000, and 6 months later he sold me for £100,000 to Hull. So yeah, there was some interesting times along the way, but yeah, it just didn't work out. And with some managers, I'm sure it's as much me as it is them. My face just won't fit my style of play.
Mark, he seems to get itchy feet, doesn't he? Eh? He's not happy. He's off, isn't he?
He don't like a lot of people, does he?
Mark, tell us, when you left Cambridge, what was the club after Cambridge?
So that's when I went up to Peterborough.
Peterborough, and who was the manager there then?
Yeah, so Baz was the manager, Barry Fry.
So come on, tell us about Barry Fry. Carl wants to know. I mean, he's a legend, and he can't have done much coaching.
Yeah, no, he didn't. Baz was, what he did do though, is he was a wheeler dealer, and he brought in a good team again at Peterborough. And his philosophy was, you had a back four that defended and everyone else attacked. The season I joined was the same season that Jimmy Bullard joined the team as well. And about 3 games in, the team talks all of a sudden then just stopped and it was just give the ball to Jimmy. Now, if you're a Peterborough fan, that's great. If you're a defender, it's not so great, because you are basically left just either 1v1 or 2v2 for most of the game. But he just wanted entertaining football. I remember when we played, I'm sure it was against Blackpool, we were 3-0 down after about half an hour. And he made 3 subs and he put 3 strikers on. And we ended up either winning or drawing the game. But, things like that, no other manager would do something like that. That's just Baz.
Very knowledgeable on and off the field. But did you was he a manager that was on the training field all the time and coming in and talking to you tactics during the week, or
No, you wouldn't see Baz until Friday, and that's when we'd have the coaches that would take the sessions all the way up till Friday or the day before a game if it's midweek, and that's when Baz would just roll up at about 10:30 in his Jag with his personalised posh number plate, more or less park on the pitch, stop the training, whatever you're doing, he'll stop it, call everyone over. He's got his suit on, blue suit with his socks his trousers tucked in his socks, and his copper football boots on, but shoelaces all undone. And he'll walk across, call everyone over, and it is literally, you're playing right back, you're playing centre half, you're playing midfield, you're going to score the goals, you're going to be on the left wing, and that's what he. And then he'd just turn around and walk off into his car again. So then the coaches then have to try and set up the formation and what we're going to do and set plays and all that.
Benny sounded like Barry Fry was on then, didn't it? Hey,
it's good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I was impressed with that.
I stopped myself from swearing. He would have threw in a few swear words.
He was throwing for swear words.
Yeah, but then match day, when you talk about kind of motivation, before the game, he was one that he could motivate a team. He had the gift of the gab, and he made sure that players knew how important the games were and how important it was to him as well as a manager. But there were times where I was at a stage where I was 24. I kind of had a good idea of the game by then. We had a few senior players there at the time that helped the younger ones. But there was times where we'd be. I think we were at Luton away, and Luton were flying really high. We were mid-table. They were top, playoffs or just outside playoffs. I think they were, and it was 0-0. And he'd come in at half time. He'd absolutely hammer us, and we were like, it's 0-0 against the team that are by far a better team than us. We're doing quite well actually, and we're doing all right. But if we weren't 3-0 up at half time, he'd just rip into everyone.
Just reverse psychology, isn't it, Ben? I mean, just a quickie, Ben, from Carl. Both of you, but did you ever feel the pressure of the fee, the signing on fee, when you move to a club?
No one's ever bought MJ, so I don't think you can talk about this one.
Hey, 40 grand.
12 grand, yeah.
How much did you have to pay to move MJ? 40 grand, that's all right.
Bag of balls.
No, I think I was about 20 when I moved to Stockport for 450, which I think was quite a lot for them at the time. Ricky Lambert moved the same time as me, and and Carlton shoved both of us in extra training, wouldn't play us, say we weren't good enough and things. But
didn't they go bankrupt the next year?
No, because they managed to sell me. Well, no, transfer fees, they can play on your mind a little bit, but I think it's more what's going on around you. What MJ just said about match days, that's such an important part, because you have such an eclectic mix of players with all sorts of different personalities, and I think the best managers I've got the knack of saying the right thing at the right time without going into huge detail. I had one manager, and in his wisdom, he decided to show you the opposition's highlights and set pieces in the changing room before a game. Now, that's usually done on like a Thursday or Friday at training. You'll go through all the opposition's set pieces, the strengths, the weaknesses. This manager showed it on the day of a game, and we'd sit there for 20 minutes in the dark. And you don't want that on match day. It's just crazy. But then the best managers, you sort of like Steve Coppell would barely say anything. But what he said, as soon as he spoke, everyone's listening because they know he's not going to waste his words talking nonsense. I had Steve Coppell when I was 18 at Brentford. Such a classy, quality guy, an amazing coach, very intelligent. But he'd only need to say a little bit. And what he said, he gave people confidence, that people understood it. Because they knew what he said was important. And as a young player, I was, 18, 19. So I was playing in the first team. And I remember one game, it hadn't gone great in the first half. And some of the older players were saying, like moaning, saying, Ben's losing it all the time and all this. And he just said, don't listen to that, Ben. He just said to the boys, get the ball to him. He's your striker. He's scored goals for you before. Just get the ball to him. just believe in yourself, Ben. Keep doing what you know you can do. And then I think I scored 2 in the second half and we won. And it's just little things like that, because as a young player at half time, 19, senior players having a bit of a hop at you, you can crumble if you don't have that support. And it's just saying the right things at the right time. And I think that's experience for managers as well.
A lot of messages there, Chanel, isn't there? I mean, it looks like they've had a really good time throughout their career. Looks like, doesn't seem that, I mean, maybe a question for you. Do you think that the clubs are as loyal as the players? I mean, what's your opinion now of loyalty? It's a big word in football, isn't it? Players aren't loyal. Are clubs loyal?
I think that's hard to answer. That one's hard one to answer, isn't it? But I guess, the manager, the style and the way that they go on is obviously reflects how the players do perform. And I guess if you're being quite negative, do you find, guys, that you're getting more negative results if you've got a manager who's being negative? Obviously, I used to think that, that managers weren't the be-all and end-all of the game, really. To be honest, it was more about the players, but it definitely sounds more like the mental messages that come from that person is key to how the player performs, and also the success in the game. I
think you're right there. Players do have huge power, and if they decide they don't like the manager, then the manager's as good as finished. And
dead in the water.
Yeah, in that way, the players are more powerful. But also, if you get a good manager, players will do anything for them. And with the loyalty thing, I think loyalty it's a tough one, really, because I'm reading Johan Cruyff's book at the moment, and he sort of talks about sometimes you have to make those tough decisions. How can it help anyone being loyal to a player that's, if you don't think he's good enough for the team as a manager, it's not going to help anything, because he's just going to be hanging around not playing. And I think loyalty, it's a tough one in football. I don't really think there is much.
You've mentioned a few managers, Ben. Let's talk about, and same with you, Mark. So for you, Ben, I'm going to pick Stevie Coppell, Peter Taylor and Roy Hodgson, the difference between the three. And Mark, in the meantime, you think about 3 of yours, we'll come to yours, the different styles and how they were as managers.
So Steve Coppell. Steve Coppell was quiet, very intelligent, but he had Wally Downs as his assistant. And as MJ said, assistant is usually the opposite, and Wally never shut up. But it's that mix. Yeah, Steve Coppell, he just made you feel wanted, really. When I'm deciding where to go on loan from Blackburn, Bournemouth, Brentford, there's quite a few ones, and I'm trying to choose who to go to. Yeah. And all I wanted to do was play football. And I went to meet Steve Coppell on a Friday night before Brentford were playing Wigan, so he was up this way. And I just went, I had a pint with him in the hotel, and he just said to me, Ben, you've got a place in the team. It's up to you to lose it. And that's all I needed to hear, that I'd get a chance. I'm going to start. If I sign for them on loan, I'm going to start. And if I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough. But
how does Roy compare then? How does Roy compare to that? And
well, as I say, I was a young kid at Blackburn, but I think Roy Hodgson, I don't think he's quite. He's different at Steve Coppell in that way. I think he's more structured with the way he does things. I think I couldn't really give you a great overview of Roy Hodgson. So I was mostly around the reserves at that time. Okay,
and Peter Taylor.
Peter Taylor, he was a fantastic coach. I think that's why you see he did so well with like England under-21s. He even managed the national team, didn't he?
Did for a while, yeah. I think he was temporary manager, wasn't he? Yeah.
Anyone who's worked with him will love his training sessions. MJ will tell you the same, because we were at Hull at the same time. His training was brilliant when he was there, but no, he was really good. He didn't used to come till, was it a Wednesday?
Wednesday, yeah. He had a good contract, didn't he?
He had it in his contract, so he didn't have to come to training until Wednesday. But when he was there, his training was brilliant.
What was he doing Monday, Tuesday?
I think it's because he still lived down south.
Oh, okay. Right,
well, it worked well, because we just have our day off on a Tuesday instead of a Wednesday. Yeah. But
what was so good about the training sessions, Ben?
It was just, there was no standing around. It was all high intensity. It was all set up. It was making me a better player for a start. And again, if you see results on the pitch, that's a big thing. And the fact that we were winning, he was building camaraderie. I remember we signed Danny Allsop. So it was me and Danny Allsop up front, and he told me that's who he wanted the main two to be. And everything we did in training, it was always me and Danny. Say if it's just 5-a-side. It's little things like that you think of. Not every manager does. And every small-sided game, we just happen to be on the same team. And any sort of shooting drill, we'd be on the same team. Everything would be together. And lo and behold, within about 2-3 weeks, we just hit it off. We just knew where we were all the time. And it's just intelligent things. As a footballer, you don't always stop and think till maybe you finish your career, and you just see. So little intelligent things that they do. It's that marginal gains, the small things make a big difference.
Which three would you pick? Different sort of managers, Mark. Who would you?
Different managers. Well, I think I'd probably pick Roy McFarlane as the first one when I was at Cambridge.
Roy McFarlane, right?
Yeah, he came in. Derby County, England, centre half, ball playing centre half, loved playing football, brought in a load of good players, young players as well. At the time Cambridge weren't groundbreaking when it came to paying wages, but what he managed to do is get some young players that were hungry to play football. And we had a lot of success, but it wasn't just the fact that we had success, it was the fact that we were playing some really good football as well.
So you learned from Tommy earlier with your sort of physicality and getting, sort of,
probably more mental as well with Tommy Taylor. It was making sure you knew your role, you knew your position, and you did everything that you could do to stop them from scoring a goal. At the time when I was a youth team player, there was players like it was a Mickey Heathcote. He was an old-fashioned centre half. Liam Daish.
Liam Daish,
if you met Liam Daish, but his calves are about as wide as my waist, and he was an old-fashioned centre half. And he wouldn't let anyone get past him. He was horrible. There'd be times where our youth team would play against the first team on a Friday and set up as the opposition, and he would be kicking lumps out of our strikers because he wanted to make it as hard as possible for people to score. And that's kind of the same mentality that Tommy Taylor brought into me as a youth team player, and then as when he took over his first team. But when Roy McFarlane took over, he came in with, like Ben said about having an aura, a bit of class, and he was like a Rolls Royce, as a manager. He was smooth, never shouted at anyone, always encouraging people, trying to get people on the ball all the time. And we played our way out of that league. Nice. with Roy McFarlane there, and he was a nice bloke as well. I remember I don't know why this sticks in my mind, but he came in we had a couple of good results, and then we had a bad result. And I remember him coming in, and it was a Monday or a Tuesday, and he sat everyone down for a team meeting, and he just said, "Right, lads, before you go home, everyone go and order your mum some flowers." And that was it. That was a team meeting. It was just like, try and clear, basically saying, clear your head, think about...
Great idea. Yeah, just home. Completely something different. Yeah. That sounds good, that. Ben.
It's that unexpectedness. Ian Holloway did that with us. I remember we were going well. We were playing Preston, local derby, on Sky. And the day before, for training, we all turned up and he went, "Right, boys, you just need a pair of shorts." And he'd hired the Sandcastle in Blackpool out. Have you ever been to the Sandcastle water park? It's amazing. Yeah. He'd hired it out just for us. We're all running around like it's our birthday. It's just like 25 of us. And it was unbelievable. And he got the side cameras down there. But it's just little things like that just make a difference. And it is that doing something different. That season we went up from the Championship with Holloway, with Blackpool, we lost to Palace away 4-1, and we were on a bit of a bad run. We've all got on the coach to go back to Blackpool thinking, this is awful, we're going to be training tomorrow. And he just stopped the bus on the high street in London, went into the off-licence, just got loads of beers, got back on the bus and went, "There you go, boys, we'll be all right next game." Yeah. And then you're going home.
Yeah, it's clever.
You're going home with a smile on your face, and you're going to come into training the next day with a smile.
Took your mind off it, hasn't he? He's took your mind off it. So, couple of questions. Just hang on, I've got... Sam Chappell. How you doing, Sam? Hope your dad's okay. Stevie Swindles and Hoff. Big City fan for you, Ben. That's why he's watching. He knows you're a City fan. Yeah, the Hoff, Robin Hoff.
The real Hoff.
The real Hoff. No, it's not Dustin Hoff. Quick one for you, Mark. When you were older and a senior player, did you give any encouragement, or were you the sort of person to give encouragement to the younger players coming into the changing rooms?
I'd like to think I tried to. I'd like to think I was approachable. I always wanted to play football and train with a smile on my face, and I think that's what gets the best out of people. I know we had a bit of a chat yesterday, and I brought up the fact that changing rooms can be ruthless, you know, and you need to build that character pretty quickly. And being able to, it's not so much being able to handle yourself, it's more having the confidence to then take that confidence out from the changing room out onto the pitch as well. And players, like I say, there can be ruthless. If you make a mistake, you know, players will let you know you've made a mistake.
Do you think it changed from when you were ending your career to when you were a youngster coming into a squad and into a senior changing room? So you were at Cambridge.
I think so, yeah. When I was a young player, you know, I had that fear factor. I had that fear factor of not making a mistake. And because I had that fear factor, it made me a better player, because I wanted to train harder and I wanted to make sure that in a game, I wasn't the one that was at fault for anything. You know, I wanted to make sure that everything I did was what the managers asked me to do, to help the team succeed.
Because you were thrown in straight away, weren't you? 18, you were in. Pretty much.
Yeah, straight in at 18. And even as a youth team player, when I was 16, I was playing in the reserves. You know, so I've gone from playing at schoolboy football, to then playing a reserve game at Reading, or some, you know, against some quality players. And I was 16 years of age, getting bumped around and knocked about, and you know, your nose split and your cut head, and learning my trade pretty quickly. But like I say, the pressure you put on yourself to succeed kind of makes or breaks you sometime.
He tried to sell you, didn't he, pretty quickly? After 10 games?
Say again?
Didn't he try and sell you after 10 games?
Yeah, well, I went on loan. I went on loan to Coventry after about 8 or 9 games. They took me on loan, wanted to sign me. I went on loan for a month. That first week I was there was when Dave Boost broke his leg. Remember it?
Oh yeah, the one there. Yeah, he came back after that, did he, Dave Boost? Yeah.
No, I think he's actually at
Trafford, actually, that was at Old Trafford.
Yeah.
I was there actually. I was actually at Old Trafford watching that game. Yeah, it was horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the week that I joined them for a month. I played a couple of games. I had a bit of an injury with my calf, but really enjoyed my time there. Was made welcome by some of the senior pros at the time. I think Gordon Strachan was there. And I was enjoying it. Like Ben said, with Blackburn, their youth team lived on site, lived on campus, so you're always at the training ground, so you could train for a little bit longer if you wanted to. And then Ron Atkinson pulled me in the office at the end of my month. I'm sat at one end of this massive oak table, he's at the other end. He just told me to sit down, and then just picks up the phone and rings Tommy Taylor and says, right, I'm going to offer you some money. Are you going to accept it? And they had a bit of a discussion. And
you were in the room at the time, were you?
I was in the room, just sat there, not knowing what was going on. 18 years of age, kind of looking around. They have a bit of a discussion, and then he puts the phone down. He says, he's not going to sell you. So I went back to Cambridge and finished that season off. And then from then I played kind of near enough every game. I picked up a thigh injury halfway through one of the seasons. In fact, it was a season we got promoted. I played 3/4 of it and missed the final run-in where we actually secured promotion.
How did you feel going back then after having potentially Ron Atkinson wanting to sign you?
Obviously, it fills you with confidence knowing that you had that chance, and it made you realise that you if you perform, you've got a great chance of moving on. The time that I was breaking into the team, we had some players that moved. We had Micah Hyde, who went on to Watford and did really well in the Premier League. Danny Granville, who then went down to Chelsea, ended up winning the European Cup, as well as numerous Premier League titles. Trevor Benjamin, who went to Leicester for £1 million. Martin Butler, that moved on to, I think he went to Reading, and moved on to a few other clubs as well. So we had players that were moving on. So I could see that it could potentially be a pathway, yeah. But what I wanted to do was obviously earn my trade by performing well and do what was right for the team.
Ben, how did you find it coming in as a youngster? Were you quite confident? And then how were the senior players with you? And then when you got older, did you have an effect on any of the younger players and try and help them out?
Yeah, I think people don't realise outside of football, and especially people with kids in football, how ruthless it really is in those changing rooms. And I think, remember when I trained with the first team at Blackburn for the first time when I was 17.
So that's Chris Sutton and who was up front then?
Yeah. It was Chris Sutton, Kevin Gallagher, Martin Darlene, all those. And they had some big players there. People like Gary Flitcroft, he was absolutely brilliant. Being a City fan, I had his name on the back of my shirt. I was actually used to share a room with his younger brother, who's my age, when we were YTs. But they had some great pros. But I did my first training session with the first team, a bit nervous, thought I did really well. And then I'm walking off and Chris Sutton just comes to me. He's a bit of a strange character. Just went, "You blew it there, didn't you, Ben?" I went, "What?" And he went, "You're absolutely rubbish. You'll never get another chance." Do you know? And like some of the other players went, "Just ignore him. Like he's just like that." I actually wasn't that bad that day, but it was just little things like that some players, and it's just far worse than that. But it's just those little things that people get in your ear, and he obviously didn't think I was going to take his position, but I was a young striker, big striker.
He's putting you in your place, basically, isn't he? That's what he's trying to do.
But then he tried to sign me when he was manager of Lincoln. Like, no chance. There's loads of things like that, and you have to be tough, and sometimes you have to put a bit of a front on, but you have to be tough because MJ would be the same. I've seen great players be absolutely destroyed by it, and it's a hard thing to go into.
Be an actor, haven't you, Mark? Got to be an actor.
That's it, yeah.
Got to be an actor when you're performing out there.
Well, I have amazing sense of humour like me and MJ.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's it. You got definitely you two guys.
Just laugh your way through it.
You're 18 years old. You just signed. You've got brilliant. Well, played for England, didn't he? SNS, Shearer and Sutton, and then he turns around one of your first sessions and says, "You blew it."
I can imagine. Yeah, that's just knocking your confidence, isn't it? I can imagine it felt a bit deflated being a young player and first time out with the first team. So how did you kind of build up your own mental resilience? Did you just kind of just brush it off and just keep believing in yourself and what you knew what you could do and that you're there?
Yeah, I think you do have to. And the more exposure I got to it, the more confident I did get with it. And you start to feel like you belong a little bit. But it can be very hard because there are times when you think, well, maybe I'm not good enough, or things like that. And mental strength, mental resilience is huge. Obviously, it's a huge talking point now. It's always been a huge thing, but people just didn't talk about it. And I think you do. And we discussed this yesterday. And football is so much in your head. There's countless talent. There's thousands of unbelievable talents in non-league that just haven't got it mentally. And it's the whole package. It's like saying, "Oh, you can do it one game or whatever." You have to do it all the time. You have to be in, day out, and you have to be facing up to people, and you have to do it constantly. And it's a very hard thing to do. And being at the top, you look at like those United players, as much as it kills me, but when they were winning the league every year, Giggs, Scholes, people like that, Roy Keane, the determination like to do it day in, day out. There's not many people that can live with that sort of effort, and it's
drive, isn't it?
Yeah, and you get them people testing you on the pitch. I remember Billy McKinley, same. Like I'd play with him when I was really young. He was a great player, but he'd give you these passes to test you out in training, and they'd be like absolute rockets. And he'd do it for the first few weeks. And I remember him saying to my youth team coach afterwards, "He's actually all right, Ben. I've given him a bit, but he's actually stood up to it and he can handle it." But they test you out, and it's interesting if you can not take it too serious, I suppose.
Mark, any regrets?
It's not easy. It's not easy for a new player coming into a club as well. You know, if we've got a group of players that have been together since a pre-season, and new players come along, they've got to earn their stripes and try and force their way in. And you'll find that when new players come in, they're usually the best training sessions because people are on it. You know, it is a bit of a wake-up call, and you know, if I was playing centre half, I'm not going to welcome a new centre half into the club. I'm going to make sure that, you know, I up my game and make sure I'm not the one that misses out and misses training. I know that there's plenty of players that Ben's probably the same, that when new players come in, their main objective is to smash them and put them into Rosette and make sure they're not playing. I know.
Any regrets, Mark? Any regrets or any offers that you've turned down that you thought? And obviously the same applies to you, Ben, when Mark's finished. Anything that you would have changed?
Not really. You know, I feel I was quite lucky for the ability that I had, and I think that was it as well, understanding what I could do for a team, where I would play, what my role within the team was, and that changed throughout my career. You know, I've gone from when I was younger playing every game to, you know, as I'm finishing my career, when I was at Rotherham, I went in and played at centre half, then I moved to right back or moved to left back. Probably the last season and a half, I was a bit part player, but I knew that was my role. You know, I knew that I would come in, and if we were doing all right, I'd probably shore up the game and make sure we wouldn't concede any goals. And that was if it was 15 minutes every week, then that was my 15 minutes, and I was going to put that effort in. I think if I was going to change anything, it would be probably my fitness levels and work on that more and understand how important it is. You know, when I started playing, there wasn't any sports scientists in football. Yeah. There weren't people that were discussing your dietary needs and stuff. And don't get me wrong, I wasn't carrying weight. I just probably wasn't as fit as probably some of the other lads. I wasn't in Ben's fat club. So it's probably the fitness side of things and understanding how important that was. You know, I'd hate to know how I would get on now with all the monitoring and evaluating they do of your minutes on the pitch and your sprints and all of that sort of stuff. I was terrible.
I'll let you into a secret. 75 goals in 240 games, you know, that man. Next year, Birdman.
That's just in the league. I scored millions in the cup.
That was all in Australia.
The LDB Cup.
Ben, it's funny. I mean, we were talking, I think, yesterday, weren't we, about Jordan Henderson, and Mark's really touched on a good point. Obviously, question from Dave regarding regrets or anything that you would do differently. But the role in the team is so important, because we were talking about Jordan Henderson, weren't we? Just touch on that for us, will you, a little bit?
I think what MJ was saying, that not everyone's going to be a superstar, and everyone does have a sort of a role in the team. Not everyone has to be. I think if you look at kids' football now, most scouts they'll just go for whoever's dribbling through everyone and scoring. And I think you have to look. Every team needs different types of players, and that's what MJ's saying. But also, MJ used Jordan Henderson as an example, but I played against Jordan Henderson when he was young at Sunderland, and he wasn't like he is at Liverpool. He ran the show. Like, he was like dribbling forward. He wasn't someone that just stuck in those positions. But I know what MJ's saying. It's about knowing like your place, knowing what you're good at. I think you stick with what you're good at. As for regrets, I think I possibly should have believed in myself a little bit more. I'm generally pretty loud, but that's probably a little bit of as a protection sort of thing. But I should have believed in myself more, especially when I was younger. Shouldn't have gone in for the tackle that destroyed my knee when I was 21. But yeah, there's loads of
moves. I mean, you mentioned yesterday there's a couple of moves that you wouldn't have made. You were a little bit not rash, but emotional and trying to move quickly when it didn't want you didn't work out.
Emotional is probably good word. I could never hated not playing. I used to think every time I didn't play, I used to think that's one more Saturday off my football career. You only get to play till you're 30. It's one more Saturday I'm missing. Do you know, like, I had that mentality, and it's wrong. Like looking into the past, I should have been concentrating on the future, and I'd beat myself up too much about stuff. So I probably should have believed in myself, been more confident. But
you've had a great career, Ben. I mean, hats off to you. Same with you, Mark. You've had a fantastic career, but you know, Ben's being honest and saying, you know, he possibly could have done mentally a little bit more and gone a little bit higher. Would you say the same? Would you know, with your fitness and stuff, do you think that stopped you going further up?
Possibly, but I was also a realist as well. I think when I was at Hull, I went in as a centre half, and I say it in jest a little bit, but I was probably a little bit of a victim of my own success. Whereas at Hull, I went in as a League Two player. We got back-to-back promotions, and all of a sudden, I'm a Championship player. And when we get into the Championship, the manager starts looking for new players. If we'd have spent 2 years in League Two, got promoted, and then had 3 years in League One, you know, I could have had 5 or 6 years at Hull City, but it didn't work like that. We got promoted and promoted back to back, and all of a sudden we're in the Championship, and they're looking for elite players. And perhaps at that time I wasn't that player. You know, we had Damien Delaney and Corty who were centre halves at Hull. And when you talk about athletes, you know, these guys were what, 6'4", Ben, 6'3", 6'4", you know, strong, good in the air, could get around the pitch. You know, they were great players. But you know, I think Ben's been a little bit harsh on himself, because if you get to be able to play football for as long as we did, you know, I think I was, I don't know, 17 seasons, 16 seasons, something like that. Ben's not far off, you know, double figures at least. You know, you've got to be thankful for what you have achieved and look back. And you know, I'm quite lucky. I've had 4 promotions in my career, and I know a lot of players that have probably played a lot more games and maybe scored a lot more goals than me that haven't had any promotions. You know, I've been lucky that I've been in teams that have performed well and been part of success. And when you're part of success, you get built into folklore and into that city or that town that you're playing for.
So you can tell everybody in a minute, after I've spoke to Ben, about your sort of transition from your end of your career going back to Blackpool, and how that story sort of. But I'd like you to write down your 5-a-side team while I talk to Ben, because Ben, you know, got to just tell us your Tranmere story, Ben.
What sort of 5-a-side team?
Any 5-a-side team, yeah. Write it down. What your 5-a-side team is.
That I've played with.
Yeah, no, whoever you want.
Oh, whoever I want.
If you were to pick a 5-a-side team, you know.
I'll play him.
Now you're fit, then I'll pick you.
But Ben, just tell us about you've just signed for Ronnie Moore and what's happened there.
Well, I was at the end of my contract at Notts County, and I'd gone on loan to Cheltenham. I think I was 30 then. My knee, I'd had like 15 operations on my knee then, and literally from the age of 25, 26, I'd play on a Saturday, couldn't walk till Wednesday, train Thursday, Friday, play on Saturday, and that was my life, that was my career. So I wasn't particularly enjoying it. I managed to go on loan to Cheltenham right at the end. We got to Wembley, lost in the playoff final, but I didn't know what to do with myself. I half wanted to quit. I think more than half wanted to retire. I'd lined up a PGCE to qualify as a teacher, so I'd lined up that at university just in case I didn't get a contract. But Ronnie Moore kept coming to watch me. Like, he watched me at Torquay away in the semi-final of the playoffs. I'm thinking, you don't need to come that far. But then the playoffs finished, and I'm speaking to my agent, and he's talking about these clubs and that clubs, and I'm like, I'm not sure I even want to do it. Then Tranmere were just so keen, and it's not that far away from where I live. So I went to speak to them, went to have a medical, and medicals, that's a whole new world. My knees are absolutely shot to pieces. I've not passed the medical for years, but there's loads of distraction techniques. So the guy I'm not going to tell you which club, but one club I had a medical and I kept my jeans on, and that was part of the deal. I wouldn't sign, and the physio tried to examine my knee and said, I'm not signing. Like, I'm not going to sign unless so they let me. And I managed to play loads of games, but the Tranmere medical was just an absolute farce. How I managed to get through that, I was gritting my teeth and the getting me to do things with my legs, and I'm like, no problems at all. Like, but I passed it, and they give me a 2-year contract. So I think I wanted them to fail me, but they give me a 2-year contract. I came back for pre-season training. I remember speaking to the local press, and when you're supposed to be excited and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, I'm really looking forward to the season. I can't handle this pain. Like, after a game on a Saturday, I wouldn't be able to walk, and my wife would be saying, what are you doing? And so I signed for Tranmere, went for the first day of pre-season. They were doing it on AstroTurf. Couldn't do it because I can't run on AstroTurf. And then I did the first session on grass. Went really well. Then my knees were swollen. I couldn't walk for a week. Then I played a pre-season game against some non-league team, and the centre half had this this big mouth guard, and he was proper meathead. I've gone to close him down, and as he's turned, I've just carried on because I couldn't turn my leg, and I've just landed on the floor. And I remember looking up at the centre arm, driving away with the ball, thinking, Ben, what are you doing to yourself? It was that bad that at the start of the game, I come out the changing rooms, and the team were at the far side of the pitch warming up. I could barely get there jogging, and it's just like, but I went.
You're meant to be the star player.
I know. That was the worrying thing. So I went to see Ronnie Moore. I trained about 3 times, played 1 or 2 games. I said, Ronnie, I'm going to retire. And he just looked at me and went, you can't. I've just signed you. You're our main man. I said, Ronnie, I can't move. I can't train. I can't move. And he went, I think you've been doing all right. I'm like, but I can't, Ronnie. And I said, I don't want any money. Just rip my contract up. I'm done. Like, And he just went, right, Ben, I'm not letting you do it. Go home for the weekend, come back, and then tell me what you think. So I had to wait until the Monday, went back in and said, Ronnie, I'm done. And he's just like, you still can't, Ben. I'm just going to walk away. I don't want any money. And he just, in the end, he shook my hand and he was all right. But I remember, it'll be the same for MJ. Going back into the changing rooms then and getting my stuff, I was so close to tears, like, because I was thinking, this is the last changing room you're going to be in. As much as in my head, I knew I wanted to do something else and it was better for my body. I was thinking, this last changing room I'm going to be in, about picking my boots, saying goodbye to the boys. And it's like, I barely knew them, but I'd made some friends already. And it's like, I was choking back the tears thinking, I've only been at this club a month and I'm crying leaving the changing. But it is that case, that finality, thinking, I'm not going to have that anymore. I'm not going to have that camaraderie. And I remember I did stop on my way home and actually just sat there and, well, I did get a bacon and egg butty as a treat on the way home. And then I just sat there and just on my own and just cried thinking, geez, that's it.
Well,
when I was born to now, this is all I've ever wanted to do. And then that was it. It's like, God.
A bit, yeah. Well, Mark talks about his transition from obviously finishing playing to going over to Blackpool to the Trust. Just write, again, if you don't mind, write your 5-a-side team down. And just a quick one before we go over to Mark. Did you play with Ben Shawley, my old teammate at Arsenal at Tranmere, from Craig Holloway?
No, I didn't. He wasn't there at that time. I played against him many times. Good defender, but no.
Right. Mark, talk us about when you were sort of getting to, mid-30s, or was it earlier when you started to think, well, about time I started thinking about doing something else?
Yeah, I think it was when I was about 31. And it's when I finished at Blackpool, really. That's when kind of panic set in. I joined Blackpool the year before, towards the end of the season. We stayed up. I played most of the games, stayed up. The following season, I played a few games, but I was in and out. And then I was on the bench for the whole season, really, coming on every now and again. And then to the last quarter of the season, I was like a mascot. Simon Grayson just take me to games, wouldn't let me go out on loan. Don't get me wrong, I enjoyed my time at Blackpool. I had some really good mates, and we were talking the other day about how all the players seemed to move to Blackpool, and it just meant that you'd see each other at training, but then you'd see each other outside of training, and the camaraderie and the friendships, they grew outside of training as well. And the wives hang out with each other and you go out for a meal and stuff like that. And I think that is probably another reason why we had the success that we had.
So how did you transform from footballer? And obviously we need to touch on your international career as well a little bit, if you don't mind, but how did you transform from player to play the Community Trust?
Well, I came from Blackpool. I went. That's what I was told at 31 that I wasn't getting a contract at Blackpool.
Right.
So I was panicking, and I was thinking, I've not played much of the season. I'm 31. Who's going to take me on? Ended up going down to Rotherham, which was a good move for me. I met Mark Robbins, who was manager at the time, a fantastic manager as well. And he gave me a chance down there, and I had 3 great years down there. But my final year, Ronnie Moore had come back to the club, wasn't enjoying my time, and I knew that I was going to come back up to Blackpool. I had my house in Lytham, and I knew that I wanted to come back to Lytham. bring my kids up in Lytham. So I moved back, and my idea was that I'd come back and play a little bit of non-league stuff and ease my way into something within sport, not sure what. And I rang one of my friends, Kieran Donnelly, who's now head of the academy at Fleetwood. But at the time he was at Blackpool, and I said, is there anything going at the trust? Is there anything happening at the football club? You know, any soccer camps that I can join in on and get my feet, you know, through the door, sort of thing. And he said, yeah, come up. He said, I'll speak to the fellow that's looking after the trust at the minute, Derek Spence, who was a Blackpool legend, played for Northern Ireland, hard as nails. He said, I've just spoke to Derek. He said, come up and have a chat. So no problem. So we come up, moved in and everything else. He said, right, Derek wants to meet at Stanley Park. Are you right to meet up? So yeah, no worries. Went across to Stanley Park and Derek was stood there. And he's, you know, quite a brash character, really loud character. And he had like a couple of five-a-side games going on. So introduced myself. Kieran was there as well. You know, Mark's come down. He's just moved back. He used to play at Blackpool. He's moved back. Wants to get involved with the trust. He said, no problem. He said, what are you doing now? I said, you know, nothing. Just come for a chat. He said, right, you're in goal. So he stuck me in goal for 45 minutes, and that was my introduction.
That was your job interview, was it? So
yeah, that was it. So I played in goal for 45 minutes, and he said, right, we've got a few camps coming up in the half terms and stuff. I'll get in touch, and that's how I was introduced into being at the trust.
Funny, you know, Chanel, just talking about networking and talking, and how Mark has a very amiable character, and Ben's obviously an absolute baller as well. He's a character. Their personalities has obviously led them to the next career, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Shines through, doesn't it? How they are maybe not planning the best, but just because they are, you know, so gregarious and personable, and have that personality, they don't really want to upset anybody, that it's made other careers for him, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it's great that you've been able to take that into the next chapter. I mean, going back to before, obviously you got into the community trust and Ben, your teaching, did anyone ever guide you about like what to do next in football, or was it just subconsciously there in your mind, or was it never something that you really thought about until it actually happened?
Well, MJ, you go first.
I was going to say, the PFA would come and see you on a regular basis and talk about education programs, and talking about career pathways, but nothing too specific. It's kind of up to you to then make that move. Now, if you're playing football and you're focusing on football, Ben's probably a little bit different because he had a bit more time on his hands. But when you're focusing on football, I was always fearful that if I jumped into something else and took my concentration away from what I was doing, that might cost me my career. Yeah. You know, and I think there would probably be a lot of people in that same boat as well. Ben had a little bit more time on his hands to focus a little bit more on what he might do, and it's probably in his mind a little bit sooner as well, after, you know, the issues that he had with his knee, just thinking a little bit further ahead. My thought at all time was that I'm going to put 100% into football, build my relationships up and see what happens. You know, I'm happy where I am at the minute. I'm loving my time at the community trust. I think me and Ben both had the realization that when you come into the real world, some of the things that go on in the changing room and some of the things you say and how you behave, and, you know, you can't go around cutting up people's socks and putting deep heat in people's pants and, you know, letting people's tyres down and stuff like that. That doesn't go down too well when you do it in an office space. So things like that had to kind of be reined in a little bit. But yeah, coming into the real world was an eye opener as well.
I think more should be done. I think I really like the American way they do it. I think with the schools, I think it's such a good way that the people are getting the education, and it's important, school and sport together. And sadly in football, it's sport or school. And I don't think it should be like that. If you read Alex Ferguson's Leading book, his book called Leading, he talks about it there. He talks about, honestly, he says, I'm not interested in what the players are going to do afterwards. I'm not interested in whether they get an education. My job is to get the best footballers for Manchester United Football Club. And when you see that, and he's totally right, and he was obviously unbelievable, but these are people, and I think when you're out of football, you realise it's like you get so wrapped up in it, and it's over by the time you're 35 if you're lucky. You've got the rest of your life. That's why there's so many problems with footballers that retire, because it's everything for such a short space of time, and it's a third of your life maybe.
And nothing can ever fill that either. Nothing can ever fill that void of running out of the tunnel or being in the changing room. Nothing can fill it. Even, I've been lucky enough to be an academy coach for a little while, and as much as you love spreading that information and making these little the youngsters better, sometimes you feel like I need to get on the pitch. You can't take that away. You want to be involved all the time. Good
saying you said yesterday, Ben. Do you remember what you told me? That life after football. What was the saying? Can you remember?
Oh yeah. Happiness comes from progress. You've got to be doing something. You've got to be progressing. You've got to be getting better at something. You've got to have something to focus on, I think. And that's what we were talking today. There's millionaires, billionaires that get depressed, and it's not you've got so much money. It's because they're not doing anything. You've got to be doing something. Your life's got to have a purpose. Like MJ was saying, working with the kids in the community. If you see MJ with the kids, like the kids love him.
Yeah.
It's that your life's got to have a purpose, regardless of how much money you have. Mm-hmm. If your life's got no purpose, you're going to be depressed. You're going to have huge issues. And like MJ said, nothing replaces that football. But when I started teaching, I was enjoying that, but there was still something not quite right. I still need to do a release of sport somewhere. So I do swimming or cycling. If I don't do that, I get down in myself, because like MJ, our bodies, that's what we've done.
Your body's conditioned to it, isn't it?
Hey, we'll have to do a cycle ride, me and you, Ben, for charity. Come on. Yeah, I'll let you. Mark can do it. We'll do a charity ride somewhere, eh?
I've got a skateboard.
But Ben, how did you feel? You just left, and then you sat in an interview room going for an interview for your first job at a school. I mean, were you nervous? How did you feel about that?
It's just different. I think I did my year's teaching qualification at university, which was quite nice actually, just having a year away from football, just going to university. I was just a mature student, hanging around with the kids, thinking I was cool. I was the only one that could afford Starbucks. I did enjoy that. I love learning. I'm a bit of a geek like that. I'd happily keep just going to uni and get master's degrees and stuff like that. But I enjoyed that. And then going for a job, you can just put things into perspective, because you've got all these kids around that going for the first jobs of their lives, and they think this is it, this is my world. If I don't get this job, it's all over. But like, if you've been booed in front of 20,000 fans, going into a room with 4 people and trying to impress them, it's not a major thing. So yeah, I was all right on interviews, and generally I can waffle my way through things.
Are you two happy? Obviously, Chanel and I are doing this extra time and trying to help the parents and kids with academies. And also, I think there's a space for helping pros transition. But would you two guys get involved in our sort of mentoring program and try and give some of these people a bit of a hand if you needed?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure the youngsters look up to you when you wear that Blackpool tracksuit, don't they, Mark? And you walk in there and they say, "Oh, are you a player?" And you go, "Yeah." And
I worked on the Premier League's Kicks program for Blackpool quite early on when in my time at Blackpool, and we go into some really dark areas in Blackpool where what we're trying to do is put some football on or put some physical activity on to try and engage kids and move away from antisocial behaviour. Now, the first barrier that you've got is they don't know you. So when you turn up and you've got a Blackpool kit on, that kind of opens the door a little bit. But then when they ask you if you've played, and for me, I can say, yeah, I've played. All of a sudden, you kind of guarantee, you get respect straight away. You can hold a conversation with them, and you've got a common interest. And you build that trust really, really quickly, a lot quicker than I would say, someone else trying to go into that role and into that position. And it's definitely helped me with some of the relationships that I've had with some of the kids that, you know, we come across. And Ben will tell you, you know, working in Blackpool, it's a really deprived town, and it's crying out for help. But there's some really, really good kids out there, and they just need a bit of support and a bit of guidance. Like you say, the mentoring thing is really important too.
Great. I mean,
I would say as well. Sorry, I'd say for young players and parents of young players, I think obviously, like MJ says, you've got to give it your 100%. If you get the opportunity to be a footballer, you've got to give it everything you can. But you've also got to put everything into perspective. I think for parents as well, if your kid's in an academy, don't make that what your child is. Your child is not a footballer. Your child is a child who happens to be decent at football. Don't make it everything, and just take it for what it. There's so many lessons football can teach you if you're open about it. And if things don't work out, think of the things your child's gained from that. Don't be sad. Don't be bitter. Take it for what it is. I think Frank Lampard talked about it. He was sort of saying it's always sort of the parents, how they are. But you just got to take it for what it is. Your child's got to work in this elite environment. What can you take out of it? Don't think of it as my child's failed, or if you're the young player, don't think I've failed. There's always be other opportunities, football or not. But what have you learned from those? And I think it's really important that you try and take the positives out of things. I think I should have done that more in my career. But I think for a young player, even from age 8 all the way through to 20, whatever, what have you learned from that environment? There's loads of transferable skills that MJ will tell you as well.
We want to, leadership, organisation, discipline.
You work with people from different backgrounds. Yeah. You adapt to different situations. You can work under people. You can lead people. You can work under pressure in pressure situations. And sometimes footballers don't believe that they can do other things because they're just trapped in that bubble. But there's so many transferable skills.
I would love you to help, because I think you've both got such good communication skills, haven't they, Chanel?
Yeah, and so many good qualities there. I mean, you're both relatable, and you both come across quite relaxed and humorous, of course. But yeah, just stop, dwelling on things and getting everything in balance, because obviously half of football is the mental side as well.
Yeah.
Just touch on your international and how that differs for you compared to playing club. I mean, I know there's only 10, 11 caps and 1 goal, but come on, let's touch on that.
1 World Cup goal, is that you say?
Yeah, 1 World Cup goal.
Yeah, so
scored for Ireland as well, Go on.
I was really fortunate. The Antiguan national team came across to England and were looking for players. They had a couple of qualifiers that they wanted to really give it a go. They were playing Cuba, and they wanted some England players just to boost their squad a little bit. They came to Leicester. They were on our local radio station. My dad picked it up, rang in and said that his son plays football. So they gave me a call and passed on details. I went and met them, and yeah, they sold it to me that I was going to go over to Antigua. I was going to go and play against Cuba. I was going to go over there for 10 days, all paid for, flights paid for, train with the lads, have a couple of games, and then come back. If we beat Cuba, we go into the next qualified round. If we don't, then there's other tournaments that would come up. The first game we played, which was a home game against Cuba, we lost 4-3, but we played really, really well. Unlucky. We played in...
Are you playing up front or at the back?
At the back. I don't play up front. We played at St Viv Richards Stadium.
The Cubans were all like that during the game, though. It was that hard for them.
I'll tell you a story about... So we played at home, St Viv Richards Stadium, the new stadium they built for the Cricket World Cup. Packed out, great atmosphere. We lost 4-3, but it was a really good game. We went back to the hotel, woke up the next morning, we were flying back to Cuba. Now, flying back to Cuba, we couldn't fly direct. It took us loads of different routes. But the final trip back, I can't remember where, I think we were St Martin, it might have been, or Martinique. We got on the plane, or we got to the airport, and Cuba were there as well. Now, we've got there, and they're in all the duty-free shops buying everything. And I mean, they had DVD players, TVs,
Sounds a bit
stereos. They were like, right, they were asking us if we could take them on the plane for them because they had so much. And we got on the plane, and the overhead lockers on the plane, they were full of DVD players, stereos, everything, but they couldn't get it in their own country. So this was like their only chance of being able to get all this equipment and stuff. It was crazy. Went over there and we lost the away game 4-1. We didn't play very well. And I remember I was gutted. I was gutted for the team and for the squad. I put in loads of effort. I think I was emotionally drained and physically drained and jet lagged. I think I cried in that second game. I think the first time I ever cried at the end of a game, but I think I was that emotional of everything that I'd put into those 10 days.
Yeah, brilliant.
And it didn't happen for us that I just couldn't stop myself. Fast forward a couple of years on, and they're in the same position where they're in the qualifiers again. And this time we had success. We got through the first round of qualifiers, which was the first time Antigua had ever got through the first round of prelims. We got into the second round, which is where we played against. We're in a group of 4. We got the plum tie. We had USA in our group. Now, it was a massive game for our country. We played America away, USA away in Tampa, in the Buccaneer Stadium. Now,
Nice.
the stadium held 80,000 fans, which was the same capacity as the population of Antigua. That's how small the island was.
Yeah.
We were playing against USA, which was the biggest nation in that competition, in the CONCACAF. And it was amazing. We did really well. We lost 3-1, but the performance was brilliant. We came off like we'd won, basically. And that little run that we had was fantastic for us, and it was memories that I'd keep with me forever.
Yeah,
and that was when I was 30. I think I was 33, so it was the end of my career.
Nice to end that way, isn't it? Nice to have that sort of on that.
Yeah, it was a great way to go out. I made some really good friends over there, and like I say, being able to fly over there and play football and fly back and carry on with my work, it was fantastic at the time.
Just a quick hello to Rich, partner. How you doing, Rich Tracks? You work with my lads hard. I've seen you training them. Well done, mate. And my son over in Chicago. Love you, son. Nice for you to watch. So we touched on it a little bit yesterday, Ben, and I know you definitely would have signed with me, wouldn't you? You know, being such a top-class communicator, such a lovely, charming agent, and sport representative, you definitely would have signed with me, wouldn't you? And you would have, wouldn't you, Mark? Of course you would. But let's talk about what skills does an agent need, because there are young lads out there now, and they're getting 16, 17, 18, and they go, "Oh, I'm signing for, let's say Tommy Smith, ex-Liverpool, whatever." But the name of being an ex-footballer doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get the right advice, does it?
No, I don't think it does. I think certainly my experience, the best players have the best agents, and none of them were top-rate footballers. None of them were high-ranked footballers. They're usually businessmen, and I think it's hard. It's very hard with an agent. There's so many of them around. It's got to be someone you trust, and it's got to be someone with contact. It can be very hard. I've had agents, and we discussed this yesterday, that used to play, and they'll say, "I'm going to come and watch you every game. I'm going to tell you how you can be better and stuff." I'm like, "Well, you're my agent. I've got a coach. I've got a manager. I've got my dad that comes and watches me and tells me what I do wrong. I want you to get me a new club. I want you to get me a better contract. I want you to negotiate. I want you to have something to get me somewhere better. That's your job. Yours is business. It's nothing to do with telling me what I should do on and off the pitch. On the pitch. And also, it's got to be someone that can advise you as well. Yeah. MJ will be the same. And I played with so many players that have had horrendous financial advice, and they don't know how to look after their own finance. That's something that should be taught, and I think it is starting to be taught more to academy players. How to just life skills, like bank accounts, where to put your money, invest your money in things. And I was lucky with my agent because he was quite big, and people said don't go with him because he's got all the big players and stuff. But sort of always had time for me. And it wasn't just who he knew. He knew a guy who did mortgages.
Yeah, he knew a guy.
He knew a guy who did loads of different things. I was very lucky I chose the right one in the end. But yeah, it's something you have to think very carefully about. How honest are they with you? What can, as harsh as it sounds, what can they do for you? You're not there to make friends. It's good if you get on with them, but what can they do for you?
Good advice. So you need to really do a little bit more research, ask a few more questions, talk to maybe the players that they've signed. Did he get me a deal? Did he get me a loan? Did he go to the right club? Is he giving me the right advice? You know, are you investing in stocks and shares and houses or whatever? You know,
always ask. Yeah, I'd say always ask another player. When I was looking for an agent, I asked. At the time, I was on loan at Brentford, so I asked Steve Coppell, who'd come across loads of people. I asked some of the older players, who were they with, who they had before, and just from that, they gave me great advice.
Yeah. So go on, Mark. 5-a-side team. What have you got down?
Do you want to go through it? So I've picked mine on.
Yeah. You pick yours, and then
not necessarily. I've picked mine just for probably what they meant to me, really.
Go on.
I've gone Perez in goal. He played with me at Cambridge. Lionel Perez. A character in net, but he was also he was the first ever sweeper keeper that I'd ever seen, and he'd catch a corner, run past you to the edge of the box, drop it down, dribble it to the halfway line, then pass it to the winger. And he never come across anything like that before. So just for
shots though,
he kept getting chipped.
He had crisp packet wrist.
He's only 5'3".
Great at dribbling it out.
Go on then.
So yeah, just for what he showed me a different type of goalkeeper that there are. I've gone Paul McGrath.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, again, he was someone that I loved watching. Mr. Reliable. He was always an 8 or 9 out of 10. I know that he had things going on and preparations and stuff like that probably weren't great, but as a footballer, you know, you wouldn't see him have a bad game.
I had listening to Ian Rush, I think it was yesterday, I think either on TalkSport or BBC, but he was saying he couldn't score against United for 10 years because of Paul McGrath. Yeah. Him and Franco Baresi were the best two players that he'd ever played against.
Yeah, so when I was a kid, Paul McGrath was someone that I looked up at, and he was, you know, for the consistency, and Des Walker as well as an athlete as well. They were the two that I, you know, but I put Paul McGrath in my team. Next one, I'd have Mahrez. Right. Being a Leicester lad, he won us the Premier League. You know,
what, more than Jamie?
I would say so. Yeah.
Okay.
He was unbelievable. He was unbelievable and unplayable. And some of the goals he scored, don't get me wrong, you know, Jamie Vardy had a great season, a phenomenal season, and everything clicked. I was listening to Schmeichel the other day. He was on a podcast that I was listening to, and he just said that they were just a team that believed in, like Ben was saying, that believed in the manager and believed in the philosophy. And but I think Mahrez, out of all of them, was the match winner. Next, I'm going to go Ian Wright. Again, as a youngster, watching him play, and the enjoyment that he got out of playing football.
Yeah, and a big smile on his face always,
constantly. And you knew that when we were talking about knowing your position and knowing your role, he knew his role was to score goals, and that's what his endeavour was, to score goals all the time. And obviously, his record speaks for himself. Quite lucky that at the back end of his career, he went and played for Burnley, and he came on as sub, and I managed to play against him. And he only played about 15 minutes. I don't even think he touched the ball much, but for me, that was one of the highlights of my career, being able to say that I was on the same pitch as Ian Wright. Yeah. And then lastly, similar things really, Thierry Henry. You know, watching him play, watching the enjoyment that he had, watching how he floated around a pitch.
Can I just say something? MJ used to think he looked like Thierry Henry. He used to shave his hair and he used to think he looked like Thierry Henry.
I can't believe you haven't put Ben Burgess down on there. You do look like...
I don't like him anymore.
Someone
Well,
said
like
on here,
that now.
look, someone said on here, you look more like Carlton Palmer. I don't know what that is. Go on, Ben. What's your five-a-side team, mate?
It would be Joe Hart in goal.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
is this going all Man City?
Yeah.
No, Joe Hart was at Blackpool. He came on loan at Blackpool.
Yeah, I know he did.
He
He
was
also played at City.
yeah.
Go on.
He was
Who else?
amazing.
Dickoff. You got Dickoff next.
He didn't even concede a goal in training, Joe Hart. He was, and then in defence, I'd have obviously Company.
Okay. Yeah.
The best ever. Full stop. Then I'd have David Silva.
Yeah.
Just because I've never seen anyone so comfortable on the ball. I've never seen anything like it. I think Pep was talking about him recently, saying about Pep actually said to him, "Well, how did you come to England?"
Yeah.
And Pep said, "I didn't realise how much of a fighter he was and how good he's just oozes class." So I'd have David Silva. I'd have two guy who I managed to play with a little bit at Blackburn.
Blackburn, yeah.
He was just
amazing.
His technique was just incredible. Everything slows down when he's around. So if you've got two guys in David Silva, no one's going to get the ball off him.
Yeah. Okay.
And then up front, if it wasn't me,
Danny also.
I'd have to go for Alessandro Del Piero, because I used to love him when back at Italia 90. And I always used to try and get my sideboards like that, like when I was younger, and they'd never grow. But what a legend he was!
That was when you were 10.
just
Piero.
after I started drinking when I was 10.
Yeah. So that's fantastic, lads. So just to let everyone know, on Monday we've got two unbelievable coaches. One's Colin Little, under 18s at Man United, and Chris Sims as well, both local lads from Wythenshawe, just round the corner from here. Simo runs the under 15, so for all the academy lads, you've got two coaches that are probably the biggest club in the world. So let's get your questions ready.
What?
Yeah, you're second biggest.
Probably.
Will always be the biggest. And Chanel, these two, fantastic. We've learned so much. Come on, wrap it up for me. What have we learned?
No, thank you so much, guys, anyway, for coming on and sharing both your stories there. It was really, really interesting to hear, especially how you dealt with...
Yeah, what have you taken from what they've said about the pro careers, about the change, about managers? What have you taken?
A lot about managers, to be honest, with, having that trust, building that rapport, managers being consistent. It seems really important that they keep that consistency for the player. Just how to just stay positive, how to just try and stay as mentally resilient as possible. I guess being in those ruthless changing rooms at times was probably really quite challenging. And yeah, just a lot of knowledge that I've learned from listening to you guys, especially when you spoke about the end of your careers, how poignant that was for you both, and getting on and life after football. So thanks very much for that.
Yeah,
thanks for having us.
You've done brilliant. I think I picked up a few things that you need to be honest, and I picked up as well probably the saying of tonight is happiness has to come from growth. That's really important. And you guys are a credit to the professional footballers, and you're a credit since then for doing so well in the community. I know it's really important, and you're making a fantastic contribution, Joe, Mark, and Ben. You're doing a brilliant job as a school teacher, and that takes from doing that. You're doing a great job. I've watched your Twitter feed. I've spoke to a few people, so I know I've done my research about you, mate, and you are really, really well respected. And Mark,